In the vast expanse of Montana, a herd of wild Mustangs suddenly blocks an empty highway in the middle of nowhere. Cars come to a stop, police are called, and people gather, some angry, some scared. But the horses don't budge, not even an inch. As tension rises, an injured stallion lies in the grass. A foal trembles in silence, and a golden mare stares straight into the souls of everyone present. Why did they choose this highway? Why trust the humans who'd failed them before? What happened next would rewrite everything we know about animal intelligence and the unbreakable bonds of family. The sun hung low over the Montana hills, painting the Tulane Highway in hues of gold and orange. Ethan Moore was on his usual route back home, his pickup truck rattling slightly over the cracked asphalt. In the passenger seat sat a small cooler filled with medical supplies, bandages, sedatives, antiseptics, standard gear for a traveling livestock vet. As he rounded a bend on Route 79, he hit the brakes hard. There, just ahead of him, was a wall of wild horses. At least a dozen Mustangs stood completely still in the middle of the road. Not grazing, not running, just standing side by side, facing his truck as if they'd been waiting for him. Their coats caught the sunset light, shining in tones of chestnut, gray, jet black, and gold. Their manes moved softly in the wind, but none of them flinched. Ethan blinked, his heart pounding. What the? He turned off the engine and slowly opened the door, careful not to spook them. But they didn't move, not even an ear twitch. It was like looking at a lineup of sentinels. Then his eyes shifted slightly to the right side of the road. Down in a shallow ditch, he saw a massive gray Mustang stallion collapsed in the grass, barely visible under the tall weeds. His flank was covered in dry blood, and his legs twitched weakly. Standing guard above him was a golden Mustang mare, tall, strong, her eyes locked on Ethan. She didn't look away for even a second. Ethan took one slow step forward, then another. "I just want to help him," he whispered. The golden mare didn't charge, but she didn't back away either. She simply stood her ground like a mother daring anyone to make the wrong move. That's when the foal stepped out of the trees. A small, trembling chestnut colt, barely a week old, wobbled toward the golden mare and the fallen stallion. Its legs were thin, its breath shallow, but its eyes were clear and scared. Ethan stopped. The other Mustangs did too. Then came the sound of tires. A white SUV pulled up behind Ethan's truck, then another car, then a third. Within minutes, the highway was backed up with confused drivers leaning out of their windows, trying to understand what was happening. Why are they blocking the road? Is that horse hurt? Are these Mustangs? Phones came out, videos started rolling. Then someone honked. The golden mare raised her head high and let out a deep, thunderous whinny that echoed across the trees. The other Mustangs stomped and flared their nostrils. The foal ran straight to the golden mare and buried his tiny head against her leg. The crowd quieted. Just then, the flashing lights of a sheriff's cruiser appeared over the hill, followed by another, and then a state wildlife truck. As the officer stepped out, Ethan raised both hands. "They're not being aggressive," he called out. "They're protecting him. The stallion's injured badly." One officer stepped forward. "Can you get closer?" "Not yet," Ethan said. "They won't let me." A woman in the crowd suddenly pointed to the other side of the road. "There's barbed wire in the ditch. It looks like he got tangled in it." Ethan turned. She was right. Twisted strands of rusty barbed wire lay half buried in the dirt, with shreds of gray hair stuck to the spikes. Blood dotted the earth. It looked like the stallion had fought hard to get out, and now he couldn't move. And his herd, they had brought him here, to the middle of the road, to the humans. Ethan looked at the foal, pressing himself tighter against the mare, then back at the stallion, gasping softly through pain. This wasn't a stampede. It was a cry for help, and it had just begun. The sky deepened into amber as more cars lined the edge of the highway. Engines idled. Flashing lights bounced off chrome bumpers and wide eyes. Drivers stepped out of their vehicles, whispering, recording, pointing. Some stood on truck beds. Others perched on their hoods, watching the scene like spectators at a show. But no one dared step too close because the Mustangs still hadn't moved. The golden mare stood in the center of the herd, flanked by two other strong Mustangs. one a black stallion with a streak of white across his chest, the other a red roan mare with fierce eyes and flared nostrils. They stood shoulder to shoulder in a wide wall across both lanes, forming a barrier no one had yet challenged. Behind them, the chestnut foal curled against the injured stallion, who remained half-submerged in the ditch, still breathing but barely. Ethan stood near the front of the line with Sheriff Carter, a weathered lawman with graying temples and a jaw tight with unease. The sheriff lowered his radio. "Animal Control says they'll be here in 20 minutes, he muttered. "They'll need a trailer and sedation gear." Ethan said, still watching the herd. "That stallion won't survive another hour if we don't relieve the pressure on his lungs. He's going into shock." Sheriff Carter looked him over. "And the herd? They're not leaving without him." Ethan's voice was steady. "They know we're watching." Just then, a voice from the crowd cut through the murmur. "Why are they blocking the road like that?" A teenage boy, maybe 16, held up his phone. "It's like they're trying to protect something." "They are," Ethan said, turning around. "They're protecting him." He pointed to the stallion, and probably the foal too. The teen blinked. "You mean they planned this?" The idea seemed absurd until you looked at the line they had formed, the way they stood shoulder to shoulder, the stillness. These weren't scared animals. These were guardians, intentional, unified, and they were trying to communicate something. A soft sound came from behind them. The chestnut foal tried to stand again, wobbly and determined. He stepped toward the golden mare, who instantly turned and lowered her head, touching noses with the colt. The gesture hit everyone like a punch to the chest. "They're a family," someone whispered. "They brought the injured one here," another said. "And the baby," the crowd fell silent. Just then, the wildlife response team finally arrived. A large white pickup pulled up with an enclosed horse trailer behind it. 3 men in green uniforms stepped out, followed by a tall woman with blonde hair tied in a tight braid. She carried a medical kit and a tranquilizer gun strapped to her thigh. "Which one's down?" she asked, already assessing the scene. Ethan stepped forward. Gray stallion in the ditch, probably 10 to 12 years old. Deep laceration across the right flank. Might have collapsed lungs. "Can we approach?" she asked. Ethan looked toward the herd. The golden mare had stepped forward again. The rest of the herd followed, hooves echoing against pavement. "Not yet," Ethan said. "We haven't earned that right." The woman's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I think they brought him here for us to help," Ethan said quietly, "but they don't trust us yet." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, slowly, Ethan knelt down. He didn't move toward the stallion. He didn't speak. He simply dropped to one knee in front of the herd, hands open, palms facing upward, and waited. The golden mare blinked. Her ears twitched. Then she took one step forward, just one. It was enough to make the entire highway fall silent. The sun had dipped below the hills now, casting long shadows over the road. Emergency lights pulsed red and blue in the fading light, but no one dared move closer to the injured stallion without Ethan's go-ahead. The golden mare remained still, no longer aggressive, but vigilant. Her ears flicked at every rustle. Her eyes scanned every person, as if she were measuring their hearts. And Ethan, he stayed on one knee, still quiet, waiting. Then the foal did something no one expected. It walked forward, its legs wobbling, its head lowered, but slowly, painfully, the tiny chestnut colt made its way across the edge of the road and pressed its body against Ethan's side. A collective gasp rose from the onlookers. The golden mare didn't charge. She simply watched. Ethan didn't move. When he spoke, his voice was soft, like a father speaking to a newborn. "I see you," he whispered to the foal. "I see why you're all here." The blonde wildlife officer, her name tag read Haley, stepped forward slowly, respectfully. "I've got mild sedation prepped," she said, "enough to calm him, not knock him out." Ethan finally stood. "Let's try." As Haley readied the syringe, a man in work boots and a baseball cap pushed through the crowd. His flannel shirt was half-buttoned, and he had the swagger of someone who didn't belong. "What's the big hold-up?" he barked. "It's a bunch of wild horses. Call the dam wranglers and get them off the road." Haley turned. "Sir, please stay back. This is public highway," the man interrupted. Before he could finish, The golden mare stamped her front hoof with a thunderous crack against the pavement. The herd behind her stepped forward as one, forming a tighter line. The man stopped cold. Ethan narrowed his eyes at the guy. Something about him felt wrong. "Who are you with?" Ethan asked. "None of your business," the man muttered. "I run cattle just south of here. You got fencing through public grazing land." Ethan looked at Haley. "Can you check that camera footage yet?" She nodded. One of the deputies pulled the files from the restaurant down the road. Security cam faced the fence line. They turned to a nearby squad truck. Haley opened a laptop and hit play. The grainy footage began rolling. At first, nothing. Then motion. A herd of Mustangs running along the fence line. Dust, hooves, panic. Then the stallion, the gray one now lying in the ditch, came into frame. He veered too close to the barbed wire, and then suddenly he stopped. Not by choice. The footage showed him collapsing into the wire, his leg caught, his body twisting. He fought to rise, but the strands held. His side bled. He fell again. Behind him, the rest of the herd circled, helpless. They didn't leave. They stayed with him through the night until morning. And then the next frame showed something else. The golden mare nudging the foal toward the road, and the others followed. Ethan turned to the sheriff. "That's why they're here. They brought him and the foal to us because they knew we wouldn't find him in time." Sheriff Carter exhaled. "They made the call before we even knew there was a problem." Haley looked at the man in the baseball cap. "Where exactly is your fence line?" He shifted uncomfortably. "Near that ditch." "We're going to need to inspect it," Haley said. The man stepped back, muttering something about lawyers. Ethan didn't care. His focus was on the stallion and the mare who had led them here. In that moment, as the foal leaned gently against his leg, Ethan realized something else. The golden mare hadn't just brought the herd to save a friend. She had brought them to teach the humans something too. The forest had gone still. Even the breeze had quieted, as if nature itself was holding its breath. The only sounds were the muffled voices of the wildlife team and the shallow, uneven breathing of the injured stallion lying in the ditch. Ethan crouched beside him, examining the wound more closely now. The barbed wire had torn a deep gash along the stallion's right flank, but worse, it had also wrapped around part of his leg. Infection had already begun. The swelling was angry, the skin hot to the touch. "This stallion's tougher than nails," Ethan muttered. "He must have been fighting to get free for hours." Haley handed him the sedative syringe, just enough to keep him calm while they cut him loose. Ethan nodded, but paused. The golden mare had stepped forward again. She was close now, barely 15 feet away. Her golden coat glowed under the red flickers of the sheriff's lights. Her hooves shifted slowly, cautiously, as her large eyes watched every move Ethan made. "You think she'll stop you?" Haley asked quietly. "I think she'll let me if she believes I won't hurt him," Ethan said. He held up both hands, letting the mare see the syringe. No sudden moves, no fear. "I'm not your enemy," he said, soft but clear. "Out him here. Let me finish what you started." The mare didn't move. She blinked once, then slowly tilted her head as if deciding. Ethan stepped into the ditch, kneeling beside the stallion again. The foal watched, now lying curled just behind the golden mare, his breathing soft and steady. Carefully, Ethan inserted the needle into the stallion's neck and pressed. The stallion twitched but didn't resist. The golden mare didn't charge. No one spoke. After a few seconds, the stallion's body relaxed. His breathing evened out. His muscles loosened. Ethan leaned over. "Scalpel," Haley said, handing it to him with gloved hands. With calm precision, Ethan began cutting away the twisted wire, slowly, gently, unwrapping it from the stallion's leg. He winced when he saw how deep the metal had bitten into the flesh. "He's going to need antibiotics," he muttered. "Maybe surgery," he whispered. "But he's got a fighting chance now." It took nearly 20 minutes to finish cutting through the wire and wrapping the wounds in clean bandages. When Ethan stepped back, sweat on his forehead, the golden mare took one slow step forward. Haley froze, but Ethan lifted a hand. "She's not here to stop me." The mare stepped down into the ditch. She didn't look at Ethan. She looked at the stallion. Her muzzle moved to his neck. She nuzzled him gently, almost reverently, as if to say, "You held on. You made it." Ashley turned her head and looked Ethan directly in the eyes. The moment was electric, not hostile, not fearful, but filled with gratitude, silent, fierce, and deep. She exhaled softly and stepped aside. "She trusts you now," Haley said. Ethan wasn't sure it was about trust anymore. This wasn't just a rescue. It was something sacred. A message passed without words, and the entire herd knew it too because one by one, the other Mustangs began to step back from the road, forming a loose arc around the ditch. They weren't blocking the highway anymore. They were guarding it. "Get the stretcher ready," Ethan said. "We're taking him out of here the right way." As he turned to prepare the sling, the golden mare stood by the stallion's side and didn't take her eyes off Ethan. Not once. The stretcher was old but strong, a green canvas rig reinforced with leather and aluminum poles. Haley and her team unfolded it beside the ditch, setting up a hoist system from the back of the trailer. Ethan double-checked every strap, every corner. His mind raced through every worst-case scenario. The stallion's sedation was holding for now, but time was ticking. "On my mark," he said. Haley nodded. 2 officers moved into place, lifting gently under the stallion's shoulders and hips, guiding his massive weight onto the stretcher. He didn't resist. His breathing was still shallow, but his body was limp and warm. The cuts along his side were raw and wrapped tight, but at least no longer bleeding. Ethan looked up. The golden mare was watching again. She hadn't moved from the edge of the ditch, and neither had the herd. They now formed a wide half circle around the scene, facing inward, protective, focused. A few bystanders had stepped out of their cars again, phones in hand, but the moment had shifted. No one was yelling. No one was impatient. It had become something else, reverent, easy. "Easy," Haley whispered as the team lifted the stretcher onto a wheeled platform and rolled it slowly toward the trailer ramp. Ethan kept pace, holding one of the side poles. "We need to hurry," he said. "If he jolts awake mid-load, it'll be a disaster." They reached the ramp. The trailer door had been lowered, padded, and prepped. The wheels squeaked as the weight shifted upward, but then a sound, hoofbeats, rapid and urgent. The foal, the chestnut colt, came trotting awkwardly behind the group, weaving between people, making soft, high-pitched whinnies. "He's trying to follow," Haley said. Ethan stepped down from the ramp and knelt, arms out. Hey, slow down, little guy," he said. But the foal didn't stop. He tried to climb the ramp, slipped, and whinnied again. The golden mare let out a short, powerful snort. Not angry, more like a signal. She stepped forward for the first time since the rescue began, and every Mustang behind her did the same. They weren't just watching anymore. They were coming with him. Ethan glanced at Haley. They're closing in. But Ethan wasn't alarmed. He could feel it too. They were escorting him. The golden mare reached the base of the ramp and touched noses with the foal. Then she walked up step by step, her hooves heavy against the aluminum. When she reached the top, she turned and stood beside the stallion. The foal followed inside the trailer. The stallion lay motionless, but the golden mare stood beside him, head bowed. The foal curled up next to his side. Ethan blinked. His chest tightened. "This is more than herd behavior," Haley said. Ethan nodded. "This is love." The other Mustangs didn't try to follow. They stopped at the edge of the highway, silent and still, forming a final line, as if granting permission to take one of their own. As the trailer door closed, Ethan stepped outside and looked back. The herd remained in place, watching. Then, as if on some unseen cue, they turned slowly and began to walk away, one by one, toward the hills into the setting sun. No panic, no fear, just purpose. "They brought him here," Ethan whispered. "They trusted us to finish the job." Haley closed the back door and locked it. "Where do we take him?" "My place," Ethan said. "He deserves to wake up surrounded by people who care." The golden mare stood beside the stallion, her body curled around him in the trailer, unmoving. The foal, safe between them, slept. And on the highway, where traffic once roared, there was nothing but silence, the kind that follows a miracle. The sun had long since set when Ethan pulled the trailer onto his property a quiet spread of land tucked behind pine trees and sloping fields. The headlights cut through the night, bouncing off the barn doors and catching flakes of dust in the air. Inside the trailer, the silence was deep but not empty. The golden mare had not moved from her spot next to the stallion. Her long body was curled slightly, like a shield. The foal slept between them, chest rising and falling in rhythm with the stallion's slower, heavier breaths. Ethan opened the trailer door gently. He didn't speak. He didn't make a sound. He simply stood in the doorway, watching. The stallion shifted. It was subtle, a twitch of the leg, a flick of the tail. Then came a long, rattling breath. His eyes fluttered open, golden brown, clouded with pain, but alive. "Hey," Ethan whispered. "You're back." The stallion didn't lift his head, but he blinked once, then twice, and slowly turned his gaze toward the mare beside him. She moved instantly, not in panic, not in alarm, but with softness. She leaned forward, pressed her muzzle to his jaw, and stayed there. A moment passed, then he exhaled deep and long and closed his eyes again. But this time, not from weakness, from peace. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. Haley appeared beside him. "Vitals are holding. You did good. Document." "No," he said. "She did good." He stepped into the trailer slowly and knelt beside the foal, running a gentle hand down the colt's shoulder. "He's going to need milk soon." Haley nodded. "We'll bottle feed him through the night." They worked quietly, checking bandages, refilling fluids, adjusting the stallion's position. Through it all, the golden mare never moved more than a few inches from her fallen mate. She watched everything, trusted everything. Then, the lights outside flickered. A truck pulled in, headlights off, silent. Ethan stood, his chest tightening. It was a government vehicle, plain white, with no logo, but unmistakable. Two men stepped out, one in a clean button-down shirt, the other in tactical gear. The first man approached, clipboard in hand. "We're here about the stallion," he said. "Wild animals rescued on public land must be tagged and documented under Code 82. This isn't a rescue," Ethan snapped. "This is family. You don't tag family." The man didn't blink. "We have reports of the herd interfering with traffic, damage to property, illegal fencing violations being looked into, but this animal is technically state-managed." Ethan stepped down from the trailer, eyes blazing. "You weren't there. You didn't see what they did. That mare brought him to us, trusted us, risked everything. And you're telling me you want to chip him like a package and dump him on some reserve where he'll never see her again." "That's the law," the man said. But Haley stepped forward. "You'll need a warrant," she said, arms crossed. "And 3 vet signatures. Good luck with that." The man hesitated. Then something unexpected happened. The golden mare stepped out of the trailer. No one had touched her. No one had coaxed her. She walked down the ramp, slow and deliberate, and stood directly in front of the government man. Her coat gleamed in the barn lights. Her black-tipped ears were forward. Her eyes, wide and unblinking, stared right through them. She stomped once hard. The sound echoed. Then she turned, not to run, but to walk slowly into the pasture behind Ethan's barn. The foal followed, stumbling slightly but determined. And in the silence that followed, the message was clear. He stays. We stay. This is home now. The stallion still inside lifted his head slightly and let out a low, breathy sound, a sound like relief. The government men said nothing. They got back into their truck and drove away. 3 days passed. Each morning, Ethan rose before sunrise and walked out to the barn, unsure of what he'd find. And each morning, he was greeted by the same breathtaking sight. The golden mare standing guard at the barn door, the foal curled in the hay nearby, and the gray stallion stronger now, lifting his head a little higher, breathing a little easier, his eyes clearer and more alert than the day before. Word had spread, not from news reports, those were blocked fast, but from the people who were there, the ones who saw the herd stop traffic, the ones who filmed it, felt it. Whispers traveled through feed stores and backcountry diners. Did you hear what those Mustangs did? They brought the injured one to the humans, a stallion protected by his family and a man who listened. By the end of the week, trucks started pulling into Ethan's long dirt driveway. Not officials, not journalists, but locals. They brought hay, apples, vet supplies. One woman arrived with her teenage daughter, who walked straight to the fence and simply watched the mare, tears in her eyes. Ethan didn't charge anyone. He didn't ask questions. He just let them see, because what they were witnessing wasn't something to be owned. It was something to be honored. On the sixth day, just after sunset, Ethan opened the barn doors to check the stallion's vitals. Haley was brushing the foal, who now walked with more confidence, still unsteady, still learning, but full of life. The stallion was upright, not just lifting his head, standing. He was shaky. His front legs still bore most of his weight, but he was up. The golden mare nuzzled his neck, and for a moment, their foreheads touched. Ethan didn't say a word. He simply watched. Later that night, as the last bit of orange slipped behind the mountains, Ethan walked to the pasture gate with a halter in hand. He knew what came next, even if part of him didn't want to admit it. Haley met him there. "They're ready, aren't they?" she asked. He nodded. They didn't come here to stay, just to heal. Haley tilted her head. "But the foal, I think he'll follow her wherever she goes." Ethan turned to the barn and whistled, a low, soft sound that carried through the trees. The golden mare appeared first. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. She simply walked. The foal trotted after her, tail high. Then the stallion stepped out, his legs trembling, but he was walking slowly, proudly. As the trio crossed the field, Ethan opened the gate wide. Past the fence, the valley stretched into wild, open land, hills and low brush, creeks and wind-carved stones, land that belonged to no one and somehow to them. The golden mare turned once, looking back at Ethan. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a thank you. Then she trotted forward, the foal close behind, and the stallion followed, step by step, until the three of them vanished into the twilight. Ethan stood at the gate for a long time after that. Haley leaned on the post beside him. "You did something incredible, you know." He shook his head. "No, they did. You gave him the chance." He smiled. "They gave it to me first." The highway was never blocked again, but the story lived on in the hearts of the people who saw it and the fields that remembered. Some say the herd still watches from the ridgeline. Others say the golden mare had been leading them for years, but only once did she ever trust a man, and only because he listened. This wasn't just a rescue. It was a lesson. The Mustangs could have fled. They could have left their brother to die. Instead, they chose to stand their ground, to force humans to see their pain, their love, their worth. And in that moment, every witness understood, compassion isn't a human trait. It's a universal language. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share it with someone who believes in the power of compassion and the wild spirit of Mustang horses. Let's keep their story running.